Sanjiv, it's fabulous to see you, and to catch up. I want to get a little bit of your history, and I want the audience to know who you are. I know who you are, but I want them to know who you really are. And so when was your first introduction to echo as you think back about it?
Yeah, so I got my first 2 years of cardiology training with Pravin Shah at Wadsworth VA Medical Center, UCLA program.
Sure.
And of course, he was one of the pioneers of echocardiography. And I would read M-mode echoes with him. We had a session once a week of M-mode echoes alone, and he was very good at those. He could pick up things that you wouldn't even believe. And 2D echo had just started, and we had a variant system where you couldn't even see the endocardium. So I got interested in echo, and then I wanted to do further training, and that's when I went to Mass General and went to Ned Wayman's lab. So between Pravin and Ned, they did teach me quite a lot about echo.
Those are two pretty good mentors, I'd say. That's interesting. So you've obviously been in the field really 2D since its infancy. You've seen a lot of technical advances across the spectrum. What stands out to you, and what have you are proud that you've been involved in?
Yeah, I think the image quality keeps on improving. We can see details we could never see before. Resolution is much better. Of course, Doppler came by around the time I was a fellow. And now speckle tracking and other things. I think it's a very comprehensive way to look at a patient, quite frankly. I mean, it's a relatively easy way. And obviously, I was involved in contrast, and I think that was another thing that came into the field.
Sure.
And so it's really astounding. I mean, one takes it for granted, right? Because you're reading echoes and you just forget that yesterday wasn't as good as today. But it's astounding, the technical advances that have come about.
I'm going to come back and ask you about the contrast and the microcirculation, because you certainly have made tremendous advances for all of us in understanding of it, although I'm not sure I still understand it. But are there important a milestone or two in your own career that stands out to you?
Yes, I think, as you know, I joined University of Virginia, where you were before me. And in fact, I got your job that you had just vacated. So that was a good milestone for me, because Charlottesville, as you know, you lived there yourself, was a perfect place to develop a career. Small town, academic medical center, not too many distractions. So I just worked. And that was, I think, a big milestone. I had a good support at the institution. And the second milestone in my career was when I was invited to lead the cardiovascular program at Oregon Health and Science University. And then I was lucky enough to become the founding director of the Knight Cardiovascular Institute because of the big gift that Phil Knight gave us. So from those two career point of milestones, I just have been on faculty at two places, that's it. And both were very, very good for me. But in terms of academic career, that's continuously been evolving, and I remain deeply interested, work in the lab 90% of the time now.
It's interesting that you highlight two institutions. Obviously, it's a reflection of the excellence that you had in the career, but it is interesting how institutions really influence you. I know it did with my own career. Sanjiv, you played a key role in the American Society of Echo. How did you first get involved with the ASE?
Yeah, right in the beginning. I think when the first ACE meeting was being held, where I remember Al Parisi wanted that meeting, and there was so much skepticism whether people will come. I think 700-800 people came, and I was one of them. It was an easy drive from Charlottesville to DC. And of course, I have been active since then on the board of directors and different committees, became the president. And I have really, really liked being a member of ACE. Many, many reasons, camaraderie amongst the most important, and a fantastic staff. Robin, her whole team, some of the old timers like Mary Alice and Rhonda and Sherry. It was a wonderful way to interact with people and try to do something useful for the field.
That's great. I've heard that many times from many people, but you gave us a super and excellent summary of that. You were the 21st president of the ASE. You were there 2010 to 2011. I read your, president's farewell page, and so you quoted about 5 milestones. What stands out to you? You don't have to mention the 5, but what stands out to you during your presidency?
So the two things that stand out, it's been quite some years ago now, but one thing, the ACE Foundation was already there, but we refocused it and made it an important arm for fundraising. In my academic career, I have wanted to do things, and you need resources.
Right.
And you've got to manage your resources, and you've got to secure them. So the foundation, to me, was a very good way of bringing in philanthropic money to help ACE's mission. And Tom Ryan, led the first effort for fundraising. So that was one part where we consolidated the foundation, got some consultants, made it something that would become an annual thing. The second was, as you know, I am very interested in research.
Right.
And we had a summit on research. We had industry leaders, physicists, physicians, NIH, American Heart Association participants come, and we discussed the future of echocardiography. And then everybody who chaired those sessions wrote a little summary, and we published this as a roadmap for the future. So focusing ACE's
Financial security?
yes. It is very, very important. And these are hard times. There are always hard times. Every time you turn around, there are hard times. And if you don't have a source of funding, you can't meet your mission.
You highlighted innovation and creativity, and certainly you've done that in your career, but that also was wound in your presidency, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Innovation, very, very important. Without it, where would we be in this field?
Where do you, from your perspective, obviously, where do you think it's going to go where are we going over the next 5 to 10 years?
It's always hard to tell. There are lots of potential. Question is, will those potentials be met? For example, I have been involved in therapeutic ultrasound. Mm-hmm. We found that therapeutic ultrasound, and others have found, that therapeutic ultrasound can increase blood flow to ischemic muscle in the heart, independent of thrombolysis. And it can improve blood flow to the brain. We have done studies where infarct size in the brain has been reduced by 30 to 40% easily with just giving ultrasound in an occlusion model. Now, will this become a clinical reality? See, there is that leap between doing the science and then bringing it to clinical reality. And most ultrasound companies are imaging companies.
Right.
They are to get them focused to therapy, where they're not even looking at the myocardium or even looking at the brain, but just giving the right frequency and pulses and all that to reduce infarct size and improve LV function. This is really a very big area. I don't know if ACE will be as involved, but I think this is a huge potential.
It's staggering. I think it really is. Did this come from, as I alluded to earlier, you've been a leader in contrast and microcirculation. Did this concept come from your interest in that area?
Yes. So it has been shown almost 40 years ago that low-intensity ultrasound can increase tissue blood flow. But that never went sort of anywhere. The focus was on sonothrombolysis. Let's break that clot,
right.
which makes sense, right? But what we noticed was that the microcirculation blood flow was increasing whether we were breaking the clot or not. And so using the bubbles, obviously, gave us a very good assessment of the microcirculation. And that's why we've moved it forward.
It's fascinating. The microcirculation, the work that you've done with contrast, certainly you've been a leader in that. And I can remember, a little bit about the early days of contrast and all that. What's your reflection on that, where we are and where we're going with that?
Yeah, so there are two things about contrast. One is its clinical utility. Somewhat disappointing because I wanted it to be used profusely for myocardial perfusion, which is basically my passion, and it hasn't panned out that way in most places. We use it for myocardial perfusion. A number of labs use it, but it's not like every day. But the thing that is almost every day now is LV cavity opacification. And it is estimated by year 2025, ultrasound contrast will be $1.5 billion industry. So, starting with fiddling, we were fiddling with bubbles, and now it's become of clinical use, especially for LV cavity opacification. So that's fulfilling. It's good. But the more important thing for me is the understanding of the microcirculation with this non-invasive technique, which was not possible before. And we have made all sorts of observations that have led to further basic science research, especially the role of capillaries in controlling blood flow. Most people don't even think that capillaries control blood flow. It's the arterioles and all that control flow. But we have found that there is local regulation of flow by the capillaries, and we couldn't have discovered that without the bubbles. And of course, then bubbles led to studying the microcirculation itself, led to figuring out that pericytes, which is the second most abundant cell in the myocardium, completely ignored, surround the capillaries and control tone, second to second tone of the capillary. And we have also discovered that we can inhibit pericyte contraction through addressing a G protein coupled receptor that we discovered. So, you start somewhere and then you keeps on leading you to the next step.
It's fascinating. I mean, I could listen to you talking about it because I think it is. I mean, you're showing a principle of basic research transmits into clinical knowledge and advances.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's dramatic.
Yes.
You've had a really good career, an interesting career. Do you have sort of memories or noteworthy things? It could be events, it could be people. You've mentioned two people you've been involved with, or experiences that are. I mean, you got a lot, but tell me some highlights.
Very fortunate, really. First of all, the trainees I've had. I have trained at least 20 people who are in academic medicine, and some of them are leaders in echocardiography. So that's a very, very satisfying thing. Yeah, and I've met wonderful people like you, Alan, so many people who have become friends. The late Dick Kerber became a very close friend. Al Parisi became and they were my mentors. And they were so supportive. And, it was just amazing. The whole group of people in Echo were exceedingly supportive and nurturing. And so I've made so many friends. And, of course, the late David San, he was instrumental in bringing me to Oregon. He talked to the chair of medicine. They were doing a search to interview me. And then I, interacted with him. We have close friends. And, of course, he died last year. So I think that's the thing that comes out the most, is these wonderful people with different backgrounds, different interests, and very nice human beings with so much, and the traveling. Academic medicine, that's a big deal, right? I mean, we are so lucky. We don't make much money, but we do travel to nice places, right? And we make friends all over the world. And so that has been very satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, I think you highlight it is about people. I mean, and like you said, we've been very fortunate in this field that we've had some really interesting and fun people. While we were competitive, we weren't competitive. I mean, we were
Yes.
supportive,
Yes.
but pushed the field forward. And I think, you know, looking back at your trainees, the sonographer groups that we've had, and people around the world.
And the spouses, now I forgot to mention Harvey. Of course, Harvey is the guru of ECHO. And he was very supportive, invited me to his Indianapolis meeting regularly. And I got to know Phyllis through him and became friends. So I get to know Anne through you and became friends. So many spouses also became friends, and friends of my spouse. And, you know, so it's like a big family, and it means a lot to me.
Well, I think you've meant a lot to the society and to the field. I mean, I think the stuff you've done with microcirculation, your therapeutics, is fabulous to think about, and certainly gives us, you know, a good glimpse of where the future we hope will go. But thank you for all you've done, and thanks for spending the time with me.
Thank you, Randy.